Palantir with some huge news out here over the past 48 hours or so. I want to run you through what is going on here, okay? And so I know a lot of people wanted my opinion on this. How much of a game-changing product could this be for Palantir? There's a lot of excitement about this and what it means for Palantir for the future years. So I'll react to this video from Palantir Vision here on and kind of share my thoughts in regards to this, right? And the second video I want to react to here is Palantir is unequivocally a real company, says early investor Roger. And it's interesting because obviously Jim Cramer made waves last week. He called Palantir not even a real company. Is a incredible statement out of Jim Cramer there. But so we'll watch that one and react to that one, give my perspective and opinion as always. And Palantir, if you didn't know, it is a stock I own in the public account. It's also a stock I own in the Patreon portfolio. If you want to see all the stocks I own in the Patreon portfolio and all the stocks I'm buying and selling each week, check out the pinned comment down there. That will be to join us in the Patreon, and make sure you get in there before May 1st, okay? Alrighty guys, let's get into this. Thanks for being subscribed to the channel. Appreciate y'all, and let's go.
Bending artificial intelligence to our collective will. A letter from the Chief Executive Officer, April 7th, 2023. Our software and company were built for this moment. The advent of more generalizable artificial intelligence systems has begun to materially transform and advance the business we founded nearly 2 decades ago. The momentum that we are seeing across our operations, both in the technical development of our software platforms and the acquisition of new customers that such development has made possible, particularly in the United States, has significantly accelerated in recent months. We are working on and will be releasing shortly our new artificial intelligence platform, AIP, which combines the machine learning technologies that we have developed for industrial and military partners.
Now, the first thing that caught my attention, I could say, before we even get to the product and all that stuff, this is very important, folks. Do you see what I'm seeing? Do you see what I'm seeing, okay? Alex Karp is basically telling us right now that I'm going to guess earnings are going to be relatively good coming up here, okay? Look at this. That momentum that we are seeing across our operations, both in technical development and our software platforms, and the acquisition of new customers, that such development has made possible, particularly in the United States, has significantly, not just accelerated, significantly accelerated in recent months. Ooh, okay, that's an interesting word choice there. Significantly accelerated in recent months. What does that mean? Since, February, March, April, what are we talking about here, okay? Obviously, it doesn't go into specifics there, but I can tell you, as a Palantir shareholder, that's welcomed. That's welcomed word choice. Let's just call it that.
The latest large language models that have recently captured public attention for customers across the commercial and government sectors. The deployment of artificial intelligence in these novel contexts will only be made possible by foundational data platforms that enable the imposition of the legal and ethical constraints, as well as the implementation of regulatory requirements that now govern the use of data across industries and national boundaries. And we have spent 2 decades building those platforms. There has been significant discussion regarding the alignment, or perhaps lack thereof, between artificial intelligence systems and the values of the society that has constructed such systems and within which they must operate. From the start, we have built our software products on the premise that granular access controls, which constrain which specific users can access what data and under which conditions, as well as limitations on the ability of a system itself to access data across an informational network, were essential not only to the efficacy of the systems themselves, but to their adoption and acceptance by the public. Access controls alone, however, are not sufficient. We believe that the principal features of our software, which allows for the imposition on data of what we describe as an ontology, a means of ensuring that such data reflects the structure of and actual objects in the real world, and incorporates branching capabilities that we have...
Think about it like this, right? And if you've experienced with ChatGPT, you can have some understanding of this, right? Imagine you run a big company, right? And let's say I'm the CEO of a big company. I want to have a way, without ever having to use a human, and I can get this answer in less than 5 seconds. I want to be able to type in, what was the gross margin? Let's say I'm the CEO of Apple. I want to type in, what was the gross margin of Apple in 2009? And be able to see that immediately. I want to be able to type in how many iPhones did we sell in the first quarter of 2014 and be able to see that within 2 or 3 seconds, right? Think about how much faster you can make decisions if you don't need a bunch of people running around trying to find that, hey, how many iPhones did we sell in the first quarter? Oh, let me look that up. Okay, I'm going to go start going through these files and all this data, right? But on the flip side, you need only certain individuals to be able to see certain segments of data, right? Like maybe you don't want everybody to see every single data point, right? Like let's say we're getting into some more confidential information, like what was our main chip supplier last quarter for XYZ chip that goes into the iPhone, and how much were we paying them, and what gross margin did that company actually report, right? Let's say I was trying to find out those sorts of data points in regards to a company. You know, certain executives might have access to that, but maybe certain other folks shouldn't have access to that are inside the organization. Imagine you're a government entity and you need to find out information and have the system sift through data and be able to spit you out an answer that's accurate and true within seconds, right? And so not only does that information need to be perfect and right and correct, but also certain people should have access to certain data and be able to use, let's say, something that's similar to a chat GPT, right, to give you this information, but other folks shouldn't have access to that, right? Never mind organizations outside of that organization, whether it's a government entity or private entity. And so this is the work that Palantir is putting in here that I think is very important to break it down in the most simple, place possible.
Developed for the data models themselves will come to be required by organizations that seek to implement artificial intelligence within the legal and regulatory, as well as moral, confines of their enterprises. Every large organization in the world will soon require a system with these capabilities. We will be releasing our platform to companies across commercial sectors, including the aviation, manufacturing, energy, banking, mining, pharmaceutical, and automotive industries, as well as to government partners, including leading defense and intelligence agencies across the United States and its allies in Europe and around the world. AIP will allow customers to leverage the power of our existing machine learning technologies alongside the increasingly sophisticated natural language processing capabilities of the newest large language models directly in our existing platforms, including Foundry and Gotham, which are now home to some of the most valuable privately held and industry-specific data repositories in the world. The first version of AIP, which will constitute our fourth platform after Gotham.
Imagine a situation like this, right? Let's go back to the Apple example. Imagine I'm the CEO of Apple, and I tell them the machine, the data, right? How many customers have upgraded from an iPhone 13 to an iPhone 14 so far this year, right? I'm sure Apple has that data somewhere, but I can tell you that data is probably not going to be easy to get to. Imagine if there's a system that could spit that answer out like that, right? But also, if it's giving me real-time data, I can't have all my employees having that, right? It can only be a few select executives. So these are the important things that we got to think about as these systems get built out over the next 5-10 years, and that these are the type of things that Palantir is working on here.
Foundry and Apollo is currently under development and will be available to an initial set of strategic partners in the coming weeks and no later than the end of May. We are proceeding with the early release of a working version of the platform with the intention of allowing AIP's capabilities, both intended and emergent, to reveal themselves over time through further use and refinement in the field. Our platform will be critical for allowing domain-specific proprietary networks to integrate and metabolize publicly available information alongside privately held data. The union of public data sets, such as the corpus of text and information available on the Internet, with privately held repositories of information maintained by government agencies and companies, will transform the latest large language models into something more than objects of popular fascination. It will be the joining of the public and the proprietary in alignment with the idiosyncratic and industry-specific requirements governing the use of data in each domain that will ultimately unlock the full potential and operational value of these new systems. At the most foundational level, software provides an interface, a means of interacting between the human mind and a computational machine. There has always been some degree of friction in translating the desires and creative instincts of a human operator into direction that a computational system can understand and apprehend. The development and refinement of large language models alongside our existing machine learning capabilities has now opened up a whole new means of interacting with machines that has never before existed. This emerging group of technologies will ultimately allow not only thousands, but hundreds of thousands and even millions of users to interact with and manipulate data sets that until now have been functionally invisible to most people. Some degree of technical proficiency on the part of users has, for the most part, been required in order to meaningfully iterate with and interrogate a data set, or more often a constellation of dozens or even hundreds of integrated data sets with anything more than a basic set of queries or search parameters. With the advent of more generalized machine learning and natural language processing systems, anyone will now be able to ask layered and complex questions in plain English, and soon other languages as well, of data sets integrated within our platforms. An intelligence analyst working for an allied nation in Europe, for example, might prompt AIP as follows. The layered nature of this sort of query is what makes the ability of a user to interact and iterate with the system through plain language prompts so valuable, opening up data sets and data models for exploration by an entire class of non-technical analysts across an organization, while ensuring that users are only able to interact with data to which they have access. We have spent decades constructing the foundational systems that are required for users to move from mere research and investigation to concrete action. The software we have built already allows enterprises to limit or expand the functionality of the software itself. It will soon allow users to move fluidly between the development and use of machine learning capabilities and large language models across public as well as private networks. Our software currently empowers individuals to engage with and further interrogate the provenance and reliability of
That's another great example there, folks. Great example right there.
Results produced by their lines of inquiry before making decisions. The addition of natural language processing capabilities within these systems will now significantly extend their impact and value. In the commercial and industrial contexts, the deployment of these technologies will be transformative. A scientist searching for new drugs at a large American pharmaceutical company, for example, might ask AIP the following. We are now developing a capability that will allow anyone through simple written questions to find the answer within seconds and iterate further through subsequent inquiries and the refinement of models. An even further acceleration of progress will come from enabling the system to develop queries and iterate on its own. The results derived from these investigations, however, will only be useful and of operational value if they conform to ethical and legal norms. Such conformity is only possible if the data that is being queried has been integrated, as well as segmented and isolated, in alignment with the regulatory requirements of domain-specific private networks, such as those imposed in the healthcare or intelligence contexts. The risks of these emerging artificial intelligence capabilities to individual rights, and even perhaps to our own physical safety, are significant and apparent to most. It may be the case that consciousness or self-awareness is not the result of a discrete or specific set of relationships within a network of connections, such as the human brain, but rather merely an emergent property of a sufficiently complex system. Put differently, consciousness, or its functional equivalent, and therefore some form of autonomy, might necessarily arise from a sufficient degree of complexity within an informational network. It is clear that the sophistication and complexity of these latest systems will only...
This is actually talking kind of to Elon Musk a little bit here, folks, okay? Because I don't know if you guys heard what Elon Musk said, but Elon Musk kind of, put it out there that we should do like a 6-month pause on AI technology and whatnot. And, it sounds like Karp's definitely pushing back here. Some have called for a pause on efforts to develop even more powerful versions of these emerging technologies, hoping perhaps that our adversaries will join us in consideration, in considered reflection on the capabilities of such systems and their accompanying risks. To pause our current efforts, however, would be to indulge in the fantasy of a world without conflict. Very well put, Alex Karp, right? I mean, it goes back to the theory of why do we need weapons? Why do we need tanks and missiles and all this stuff, right? And it is a great theory. I wish we could get rid of it all throughout the world. There'd be no missiles and tanks and conflicts and things like that, right? But that's just not the reality. It's just not the reality, right? It's no different than it would be nice to not even have to have a car alarm, right? Why should it would be sweet if we all got rid of all our car alarms, right? If you did that, there's obviously a lot of people out there that would break into cars a whole lot more if we did something like that, right? And either steal the cars or go for joyrides or steal the stuff in them, whatever, right? And so that's why we have that, because there's a lot of people that choose to do that. And so it's nice to believe that, we could do this, do that, but the bottom line is not everybody agrees with that stance. And therefore, you must protect yourself and to, kind of stop what the work that's being done and hope everybody else stops. Oh, yeah, I think that's it. It may be in a perfect world.
Continue to increase. The challenge will be to ensure that such technologies remain subservient to our collective will. We must impose our values on the software that we create. Otherwise, it may impose an emergent and unconstrained set of values on us. It is essential that the systems we are constructing align with our directives and reflect our philosophical and moral commitments. Some have called for a pause on efforts to develop even more powerful versions of these emerging technologies, hoping perhaps that our adversaries will join us in considered reflection on the capabilities of such systems and their accompanying risks. To pause our current efforts, however, would be to indulge in the fantasy of a world without conflict. The applications of these newest forms of artificial intelligence have been and will continue to be determinative on the battlefield. Others can debate the merits of proceeding with the development of these technologies, but we will not stand still while our adversaries move ahead. Sincerely, Alexander C. Karp, Chief Executive Officer and Co-founder, Palantir Technologies.
Yeah, well put. Adversaries probably meaning mostly China, because if there's another major country that could be, going the AI route, it could be them, right? And I think this is big. I say this, okay, because how have I always described Palantir for, as long as I've been talking about it, which is at least a year, if not longer than that, right? It's a company that's at the cross sections of data and artificial intelligence, right? And artificial intelligence has become obviously a buzzword really over the past, I would say, 4 to 6 months roughly, and now everybody's talking about artificial intelligence. And so I honestly think GPT has been the best thing for Palantir that could have possibly happened, because it puts a spotlight on artificial intelligence. And when you start to consider using your data, artificial intelligence to make decisions, the number one company you're going to have to consider is Palantir, PLTR, okay? And so I think this is just a huge boom for Palantir. Looking forward to getting in this next juicy one here. Palantir is unequivocally a real company, says early investor Roger.
Is Roger Montefort. He's Fort Capital Group's CEO. Good morning to you. I'm so
Andrew.
Curious what you think of this company. I know you were an early investor. You're not one now, but somebody who understands and has studied the company. We had a conversation with Jim Cramer about this company yesterday. I respect Jim a lot, but we're probably on other sides of this. He thinks this is not a long-term great company. I look at it and think about all the things that they've done, frankly, to help protect the U.S. from terrorism and clearly where it's gone in terms of the corporate space. I'm curious where you land and how you think about both the value of the overall company in terms of what it does, but then as a stock as well.
It's interesting. This guy, I do think he actually legitimately likes Palantir.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I'll say this. I mean, first, I'd like to at least just run through some of the numbers because, again, I'm with you. I respect Jim. I like him a lot. But I think some of the comments that he made were actually irresponsible when you really look at it.
Well put.
They did 1.9 billion in revenue last year. They guided to over 2.2 billion in revenue this year. They become GAAP profitable last quarter. They're going to be GAAP profitable for the full year of 23. They have free cash flow of over $550 million over the last 8 quarters. And you're looking at $2.6 billion in cash in the bank. So to classify this company as not being real, I think is ludicrous. I mean, they're every bit real. And if you ask the U.S. Army or ask the Ukraine or ask, the folks at the CDC or, different governments from around the world, if Palantir is real, I think they'll unequivocally say that they are real. So I think it's...
You own shares in this company personally. I know your fund was an early investor in it before. When you think, though, about the value proposition long term, there are real questions about the long term value, questions around dilution, for example. What do you think of those? What do you think of those issues?
Yeah, well, I think listen, dilution was definitely with stock compensation was definitely a big deal in the early stages when the company came public through direct listing. I think those questions and have dissipated since. I mean, look, this company has always been a very provocative company. And I would venture to say it's always been a misunderstood company over the years. I've been an investor since 2014. I continue to be an investor. And the reason what attracted me initially to Palantir is, their product, their technology, their software. You'd be hard pressed to find another company out there that could deliver the software they could deliver in the format they could deliver to. When they first came public, the big issue was, can they scale it? Is it just, this dark ops company that deals with government? Can they scale this product, and can they sell it, commercially? And I think they've answered all those questions. I think,
and that's why I say, when it comes, before we listen to the rest of what he has to say here, and this is why this is extremely important. You heard what the man just said about the product, right, and how great it is, and you can hear that from almost anybody that comes from the industry and knows their product very well, right? Palantir's never had an issue around product. What they have had an issue with is marketing, okay? And really being able to tell folks out there, especially in the commercial space, why this product's so great, right? And so I think one of the greatest things, as I mentioned before, ChatGPT does so much of the heavy lifting for Palantir because it gets everybody to think and consider seriously artificial intelligence. And when you start to consider that and how you're going to use it in your company or your government, you're going to think about Palantir.
What Jim conflated was the investors that got behind Palantir and then the underlying company. You can't chastise the underlying company for the type of investors that get behind it, right?
Roger, we're going to have to run, but we have a chart up. I don't know if you can see it. This stock was trading at $40, if not almost $40, 2 years ago. It's at $8 now. As an investment, what do you realistically think about this company? Call it, if we had this conversation 12, 24 months from today.
Well, my window has always been 5 years from the time they came public. And I think management has always guided with a 5-year plan. I think, they've averaged close to 30% growth year on year since they've come public. They've turned profitable in the time frame they said they were going to. So I think the value proposition long term is tremendous for Palantir. I think it's a software that's critical at solving the world's biggest problems. I think it's going to continue to be a software that's at the forefront to solve those problems in both,
Oh, come on, man. Okay, so if you ask me, is this stock going to eventually be back in, let's call it the $30 to $40 range? My opinion that is yes. It's certainly not happening tomorrow. It's not even happening probably in the next year or two. It's probably going to take 3 to 5 years to get there, but I absolutely believe it can get back to those sorts of ranges as long as they continue to put up profitable quarters. And when Karp starts to talk about here, Alex Karp, this significant uptick in interest, demand, oh boy, okay, well, maybe, just maybe, 2023 is going to be far better than Karp, the management team, and investors were thinking, especially in regards to revenue growth. We'll see. Don't get too excited yet, but I can tell you things are moving in the right direction. And like I said, marketing's always been the issue, and I think ChatGPT has been the best thing that could have ever happened for Palantir. I appreciate everybody joining me as always. Much love. Thanks for supporting the channel. Also, if you want to support us on Patreon, there's going to be a pinned comment down there. You get to see all the moves I'm making out there, and you'll get to see if I'm buying Palantir stock this week as well as many others, folks. And other than that, appreciate y'all. Much love, and have a great day.